just ask you this. Are there any Green Bay Packer fans in here? Any Green Bay Packer fans? Let me see. Would you come up here? Who else is a Green Bay? You're a Green Bay Packer fan? Yeah, you come up here. Let me see. You and you. Yeah, I want all the Green Bay Packer fans right over here. Let me see here. Kyle, are you a Green Bay Packer fan for real? I knew it. Name one player, Kyle, besides Aaron Rodgers. I need the Packer people right here. That's good right there. Let me see. Any Denver Bronco people in here? Anybody like the Denver Broncos? 1, 2, let me see. That's you? You're a Bronco guy? All right. Let's see here. You. Yeah, and you right there. Yeah, you. Come on up. You do? Broncos I need over on this side. Bronco people right here. All right. Perfect. All right, stand on your respective sides, okay? Listen, I have something for all of you guys, okay? I brought you guys up here. I have something for all of you. Let me see here. Let's see. You guys, you can each take a piece of bread. Pass that around. You all get a piece of bread. You guys can have Starburst, okay? I like you guys a little better, so I'm going to give you guys Starburst. So just take some Starburst, share it, make sure you all get some. 1, 2, 3. Divide them up equally.
You get 3?
All right. I don't know. Divide them up equally, man. However it works out. Just take some Starburst. All right. That's perfect. Are you guys pretty happy? Yeah, you can eat your bread. Yeah. I mean, are you guys pretty happy and content with your bread? All right. Were you okay with getting bread instead of Starburst? Okay, just checking. All right. You guys can get off the stage. Hey, you guys, give the Bronco people a fan really quick. Give them a hand. Yeah, there you go. All right, good job. All right, Bronco people, you can head out now. Good job. Appreciate you guys. Don't leave me in your trash. Get that out of here. Take that, Kyle. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Sure, yeah, you can keep that bread. I don't care. Now those guys said that they were happy getting the bread instead of Starburst. I have a feeling most of them were lying, okay? In all honesty, I think they would tell you that was an example of favoritism, all right? I favored the Bronco people over the Packer people right there. I know, I think honestly, if they got down to like the root of how they feel, Amanda, you're kind of salty right now, right? Like you just got bread and they got Starburst. Yeah, I know. It's not fair sometimes. Favoritism happens in everyday life. It's not something that's always so obvious like that right there, where I clearly favor the people who like the Broncos better. But it happens everywhere we go. It happens in our schools. It happens in our friend groups. It happens on our sport teams. You guys know at some point in your life, if you really think about it, you can think of at least one time or probably multiple times when you have experienced favoritism. Whether you were the one being favored or whether you were the one that wasn't the favorite. For me, I can remember a time in my life when I was middle school age. I was probably 6th or 7th grade, and I made this select baseball team, and it was kind of a big deal. So I was pretty happy to be on this team, and I'd really worked hard to be there and to be, I thought in my mind, I was becoming one of the best players on the team. And I started hearing this from other guys on the team. They're like, wow, you're good enough to start. But for some reason, I wasn't starting. There was this other kid that kept starting ahead of me every week, and he kept doing terrible. And more, I just kept hearing from other kids and even parents on the team just this kind of encouraging word like, hey, keep your head up, like you're going to earn that spot. You're the better player. But it just didn't happen throughout that entire season. And it drove me crazy because after a while I figured out it's not about how good I am. It's about who the other guy is and who his dad is. You see, the head coach had an assistant coach that helped out. And the guy I was playing behind and just could never seem to outwork in the coach's eyes was the assistant coach's dad or his son. I mean, I worked my tail off and I did my best every day in practice, but it never seemed to matter to these coaches because he was going to play their favorite. He was going to play the kid that he knew better and he liked better. And that was a hard thing for me as a 7th grader to wrap my mind around. Like that's really one of the first times in my life that I really remember being stung by favoritism and just feeling like, man, this isn't a fair shot. Now, I'm sure most of you in here, you can think of something like that in your life where you were on the wrong end of favoritism. It doesn't feel good because it's not a good thing. And that's what the Bible tells us tonight. Look with me, James chapter 2, verse 1 through 13. Here's what James says. My dear brothers and sisters, how can you claim to have faith in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ if you favor some people over others? For example, suppose someone comes into your meeting dressed in fancy clothes and expensive jewelry, and another comes in who is poor and dressed in dirty clothes. If you give special attention and a good seat to the rich person, but you say to the poor one, you can stand over there or else sit on the floor, well, doesn't this discrimination show that your judgments are guided by evil motives? You see, back then in the early church, the synagogue, there was limited seating. The synagogue, that was where they would go and worship. And there were just some select seating. In fact, they even had a nice area where the seats were much nicer than just the regular benches that most people sat on in there. And so they would save those for rich and wealthy looking people. And so when they would walk in, you could tell, like people in that day, it's kind of like today, if somebody comes walking in with like their, I don't know, what's fancy clothing nowadays? Abercrombie and Fitch? Is that still, no, that's not cool anymore? I don't know. What are those purses that girls love? Kate Spade. If a girl walks in with Kate Spade, you know she's got some money. Or she, I don't know, stole it. Who knows? But hey, you know, in that age, it was no different. There were people walking around in their fancy robes and their cool sandals and whatever else they wore back then. They had jewelry, all that stuff. And people would treat them better than poor people. They would treat them better than the people that were wearing the not so cool stuff, the not so popular stuff, the people that looked dirty, the people that smelled, the people that maybe hadn't had a bath in days or weeks. There was favoritism in that day. And God's saying it's not a good thing. They would make these people that they looked at as less, they'd make them sit on the ground or they'd make them stand against the wall. And in fact, they would emphasize to these people, just try and stay away from this area where the wealthy people were sitting. They didn't want to lose their wealthy people that were coming to the church. In their minds, they looked at wealthy people as someone with, they looked at them as somebody that they could kind of take advantage of. Like they needed their wealth and their power and their influence to help the church. And they looked at them as more important. Even in God's eyes, they thought, oh, God cares more about us having wealthy people in our church than he does the poor. That was how they looked at it. Now, I think to us today, we hear that and we know that's dumb. Like, right? Don't you hear that and you just think, that is so foolish. And I think in this room, we do a pretty good job of not having that kind of favoritism happen or that kind of discrimination. We don't have special seats where certain people sit. Now, I know we try to keep high school over here, middle school over there, but that's different, We know, you guys kind of get on each other's nerves sometimes. We're just trying to keep the fights from happening, all right? That's totally different. But this is something, what they're talking about here, this favoritism, it's not a good thing. It's not the way God designed the church, and we know that. But favoritism still happens today. It just looks a lot different. I mean, like I said, it can look like it did for me on that baseball team that I played on. For you, it might look like maybe a teacher that favors you over the other kids, or maybe a teacher favors one kid in the class and none of the rest of you. Maybe it's with your family. Maybe some of you guys, there is a brother or sister in the family, and without a doubt, your parents favor that kid. And it hurts, it stings, it's wrong. So this is just one example here. Let's not get caught up on wealthy and poor. There's all kinds of favoritism that happens in our culture today. Now, if you keep going on here, verse 5, James says, listen to me, dear brothers and sisters. Hasn't God chosen the poor in this world to be rich in faith? Aren't the ones who will inherit the kingdom he promised to those who love him? But you dishonor the poor. Isn't it the rich who oppress you and drag you into court? Aren't they the ones who slander Jesus Christ, whose noble name you bear? They looked at rich people as something that they needed. They looked at them as something like, this will be something we can use to help the church. God favors the rich over the poor, but God is saying, no, that's so backwards. You got it wrong. The poor will inherit the kingdom of God. Now, that doesn't mean God is looking at rich people and saying, you're not getting into heaven. But he just doesn't look at people based on money or class, anything like that, and say, you're more important than someone else. When he looks at us, he sees his sons and his daughters. When he looks at people that don't know him, he doesn't see a rich person or he doesn't see a poor person. He sees a lost person that needs to know him. He doesn't favor one over the other. So for us in here tonight, this favoritism that we're talking about, it's easy for us in this room on a Wednesday to look around and say, yeah, I don't think there's a lot of favoritism that happens here. But I do want to bring something up for us. Sometimes when we're the ones who have been shown favor, it's hard for us to put ourselves in the minds of someone else, to understand where someone else is coming from, to understand what it's like to not be favored. You guys know this past week, Michael Rose-Ivy, maybe you've heard of him. He's a Nebraska football player. He took a stand for something he believed in at the game. He and two other Nebraska players, they kneeled during the national anthem. And it's been very controversial ever since. Everybody's got an opinion on the matter. People are mad, people are glad. It's very split down the middle for a lot of people. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are mad and angry, and they jump down all over what he did right away without even taking a second to try and understand where he might be coming from. I want to read a quote to you that he said in his press conference this week. He said, I believe it is my job, first as a man of faith, which teaches me, for what you do for the least of my brothers you have done for me, and second, as a young black man who sees people who look like me being unfairly treated, who do not have the platform to let others know about these injustices that go on every single day. I feel I am obligated to stand up and bring awareness to the social injustices that are not limited to police brutality, but also to policies and laws that discriminate against and hinder the growth opportunities of people of color, low-income people, women, and other marginalized communities. People right away want to come at him and judge him for being anti-police, anti-American, anti-military. He came out and said on Monday, I'm none of those things. I just want to use my platform to stand up for injustice in this world. And so for some of us in here, I don't know what your background is, but for me, you might have figured this out already. I'm white, okay? I know, that's shocking. It's crazy. But for me, I've had to learn and grow in this area because I don't know enough. I've never been black. I can't understand what he's gone through, the kind of life he's lived. I've got a couple of friends, Deshaun and Nate, they're black, and I can't put myself into their shoes, but I'm trying. I want to understand what it looks like to live life not being favored. Because that's what's been happening in our country for a long time. There's been favoritism, and it's called racism. Yeah, we've gotten better as a country, but we've still got a long ways to go. We're not there yet, and that's what these guys are trying to bring attention to. They're not trying to cause drama. They're not trying to cause a fight. They're trying to cause dialogue. They're trying to cause people to stop and think for a second. And that's what I've been trying to do in my life. Because too often I'm just so quick to judge somebody and say, oh, I know their motives. I know what they're doing. And I know there were people that did that on Saturday night. They looked at Michael Rose and his friends and what they did, and they instantly judged him. They said he's anti-police, he's anti-military, he's anti-America. They looked and they judged. But don't you remember what we just talked about in James 1:19? Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. That is the life Christ is calling us to. And so for all of us in here, and for the rest of Nebraska and the rest of the world, if they would have just been quick to listen, then they could have waited and they could have heard Michael's explanation. And man, when you hear this explanation, that's biblical. The things he's standing up for, he's standing up for injustice. He's standing up against racism, against favoritism, against sexism, against classism. All those things exist in our culture, and he was taking a stand against them. We can't turn a blind eye to those things. We have to be willing to have dialogue. We have to be willing to listen. Just because you come from one side doesn't mean you have to stay on that side. You can be open to what other people have to say. It's what we're supposed to do as Christians. Don't just go quick to judgment, but be quick to listen. It takes care of a lot of the problems in this world. We're so quick to judge before we try to empathize with somebody, before we try to understand where they're coming from. Let's jump back into James here, verse 8 through 11. Yes, indeed, it is good when you obey the royal law as found in the scriptures. Love your neighbor as yourself, but if you favor some people over others, you are committing a sin. You are guilty of breaking the law. For the person who keeps all the laws except one is as guilty as a person who has broken all of God's laws. For the same God who said you must not commit adultery also said you must not murder. If you commit one sin, you break them all. I think that's a hard concept to understand, but for me, let me put it for you this way. When I was a kid, we were in the backyard, me and my siblings, and my brother, I don't know, he's probably 5 or 6. He took a basketball and he chucked it at my head. That kind of ticked me off. And he went running towards the house because he knew I was going to kill him. And so I grabbed the basketball and I went chasing after him. And he gets to the big door before me and he opens it. And as he's slamming it shut, I am chucking the basketball at him as hard as I can. And this was an all glass door. That door shattered. I mean, there were just broken pieces everywhere. It went, he's lucky he didn't get cut up too bad. It was like, it just exploded all over him inside the house. And I'm just like standing there like, oh, I'm dead. My mom was going to kill me. And she comes out, and I kind of look at the door, and I'm like, well, it's not all broken. There's still some pieces in there. No, if you break a glass door, you can't just say some of it's okay. The whole thing is broken. You can't just say, oh, that piece is still there right there. I didn't break that. No, it's broken. It's the same with God's commandments. We try to pick and choose sometimes. We try to say, you know what, I like following this one, but this one, I'm not ready to give that up in my life yet. We do that all the time, but guess what? If you break one of the commandments, you're breaking them all. You're guilty of that. And the same goes with racism. The same goes with favoritism. The same goes with ageism or classism or any kind of grouping that we try to put people in and judge people's worth by. And I was just talking to a girl today, and she was telling me just today, this kind of popular girl came by with all of her friends and, you know, just like shoved her into a locker. I mean, they were jerks to her. And nobody really does anything about it because this girl is considered to be in the upper class. She's the popular kid. She's the one everyone looks to and they respect and they like more than other kids. And it's not right. It shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't have favoritism in this world. And that's what God and James and Jesus, that's what they want us to understand tonight. If you're guilty of favoritism in your life, you're guilty of breaking all the laws. I think we look at favoritism and we take it lightly. We say, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that bad of a sin. At least I didn't murder anyone. At least I didn't commit adultery. No, if you break one of them, you break all of them. You're guilty of them all. It is a big deal in God's eyes. It's huge. So here's what I want to challenge you with tonight. You need to figure it out. What is something in your life where you're showing favoritism? What's something in your life where you're dealing with it and you know it's a struggle, but you have preconceived notions based on somebody's race, based on somebody's wealth, based on somebody's popularity, based on how good they are at sports? There's all kinds of things that we base how much worth we value people at. We need to eliminate that from our lives. So I'm challenging you tonight, all of us, myself included. What's something in your life where you show favoritism to somebody? And how can you eliminate it from your life? Ask God to convict you of that tonight. Ask him to show you that area, to reveal it. And ask him for help in changing the way you think and look at that area in life. James 2, 12 through 13, we'll finish up here. So whatever you say or whatever you do, remember that you will be judged by the law that sets you free. There will be no mercy for those who have not shown mercy to others. But if you have been merciful, God will be merciful when he judges you. We're so quick to judge, and we're so slow with mercy and empathy. God's saying right there, mercy triumphs over judgment. Showing kindness, showing love, showing the same grace to others that you've been shown. That is the life God is calling you to. When you show that kind of grace to people, that kind of mercy, and that kind of true, real love, it can change people. People will want to know what you have, and they'll want that. And you can tell them, it's Jesus. He has shown me mercy. Now I can show that to others. I can be a person that shows mercy, a person that chooses mercy and love and kindness over judgment and anger and being quick to speak. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Remember that tonight. Let's pray. God, thank you for this time. Thank you for this time to worship, this time to study your word. And God, I pray for all of us in here, please convict us of what we need to know, what we need to see in our lives, what areas we need to change the way we view people. Help us to see people the way you see people. Help us to see them as sons and daughters of you, the living God. And help us to see people that don't know you. Help us to see them as lost people that need to know you. Put us on a mission in this world, God. Give us that hunger to make your name known. Let that be the thing that drives us every day. And God, help us to put an end to favoritism in our lives and the way we live and the way we treat others. God, I pray that mercy would triumph over judgment tonight. In your name we pray.